Imagine this scenario. You pack your cherished belongings, driven by hope and ambition. You move across continents, seeking a better life. You invest everything into building a new existence. This new place starts to feel like home. Then, the ground beneath your feet trembles. Welcoming smiles fade, replaced by cold stares. Suddenly, your new life is threatened. Deportation notices arrive, shattering your world. Visa applications are returned with stark rejections. Subtle shifts in public spaces make you feel unwelcome. A creeping unease settles in your gut. It sounds like a dystopian novel, but it's reality. This is the lived experience of countless individuals. It's a global phenomenon, unfolding in many nations. Even in countries considered bastions of democracy, the dream of a global village is shrinking. Welcome to Travel Divide. Here we explore the real side of culture. We peel back the layers and confront controversies. This isn't your typical sugar-coated travel vlog. We ask the hard questions, challenging perceptions. Today we investigate why some countries are pushing people out, and explore who might be next on that list. The United Kingdom, historically a crossroads of cultures, now faces a pivotal juncture. Brexit has redrawn political and economic lines, fundamentally altering the UK's immigration landscape. Stricter policies are reshaping lives, creating barriers and uncertainty. The dream of a global Britain clashes with a system that feels unwelcoming. Are these policies serving the UK's long-term interests? The impact of tightening immigration policies is deeply personal, particularly for skilled workers who once saw the UK as a land of opportunity. Doctors, nurses, engineers, tech innovators now face unprecedented uncertainty. Visa renewals become anxiety-ridden ordeals. Many describe a feeling of being perpetually on probation. The strain on families is particularly acute. The dream of family reunification has become arduous. Spouse visas come with stringent financial requirements. This can lead to agonizing separations. The emotional cost of these enforced separations is immeasurable. We hear countless stories from individuals caught in this bureaucratic labyrinth. There's the software engineer whose visa extension was delayed for months. There's the elderly parent denied a visa to join their children. These are not just isolated incidents, they represent a pattern of experiences. The anxiety is constant. The financial burden is immense. Application fees are exorbitant, and legal advice is often necessary and expensive. Beyond the monetary cost, there's the emotional exhaustion. Many immigrants speak of a sense of disillusionment. This creates a climate of fear. The UK, once seen as a sanctuary, now faces criticism for its restrictive asylum policies. The Rwanda deportation plan has sparked widespread condemnation. Critics argue it violates international obligations and risks refoulement. Asylum seekers face long waits and challenging conditions. The system often leaves them feeling vulnerable and marginalized. The Windrush scandal exposed deep flaws in the UK's immigration system, eroding trust. Despite promises of reform, recent policies echo past injustices, creating anxiety and insecurity. Immigrant communities vital to British life feel alienated, questioning their place in society. The future feels uncertain, leaving many to wonder where they truly stand. The United States, built on the promise of immigration, is grappling with who it welcomes and how. The narrative of a melting pot clashes with complex policies, creating uncertainty and anxiety. This political tug-of-war translates into a daily reality of fear, uncertainty, and the erosion of the American dream. The visa system is a complex labyrinth, fraught with bureaucratic hurdles and potential heartbreak. Whether it's H-1B visas for skilled workers, student visas, or family-sponsored visas, the process is laden with intricate requirements and long waiting times. Patience, diligence, and financial resources are essential. Many face increased scrutiny and higher denial rates. Even minor discrepancies can trigger setbacks. The emotional and financial toll is immense. The issue of deportation in the United States is one of the most contentious and emotionally charged aspects of its immigration policy, touching millions of lives and deeply affecting communities across the country. While deportation has always been a feature of U.S. immigration enforcement, the scale, scope, and intensity of deportation efforts have fluctuated significantly under different administrations, each leaving its distinct mark on the lives of immigrants and their families. Understanding these dynamics requires looking beyond just the numbers and examining the human cost of policies that can forcibly uproot individuals from the lives they've built. Under various administrations, we've seen shifts in enforcement priorities, sometimes targeting individuals with serious criminal convictions, and at other times broadening the net to include those with minor offenses, or even those with no criminal record but who are undocumented. The expansion of categories for deportable offenses, coupled with increased resources for enforcement agencies, has led to a pervasive fear within many immigrant communities. The threat of a sudden arrest, detention, and subsequent removal looms large, creating an environment of constant anxiety for individuals and their loved ones, regardless of how long they've lived in the U.S. or their contributions to society. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, the agency responsible for enforcing immigration laws within the U.S., has become a focal point of controversy. Its operations, including workplace raids, arrests near sensitive locations like schools or courthouses, and the detention of individuals awaiting deportation hearings, have drawn criticism from civil rights groups and immigrant advocates. These enforcement actions not only impact the individuals directly targeted, but also send shockwaves through entire communities, disrupting local economies, separating families, and instilling a deep mistrust of law enforcement among immigrant populations, making them less likely to report crimes or seek help. Behind every deportation statistic is a human story of profound loss and disruption. Families are torn apart, with U.S. citizen children sometimes separated from their deported parents, facing uncertain futures. Individuals who have lived in the U.S. for decades, who consider it their home, are sent back to countries they may barely remember, where they may have no support systems and face significant hardship. The economic and emotional consequences of deportation are devastating, not just for the individuals removed, but for the families and communities left behind, raising difficult questions about the balance between enforcement and compassion in American immigration policy. The ongoing debate over border security versus humanitarian obligations continues to polarize the nation, with little consensus on how to manage the complex realities at the border in a way that is both orderly and humane, leaving countless futures hanging precariously in the balance. Australia, the sunburnt country, a land of sprawling landscapes and dreams of a fresh start. For generations, it's been a beacon for those seeking opportunity. But for those arriving by boat seeking refuge, the welcome mat has been decisively pulled away. Operation Sovereign Borders, launched in 2013, aimed to stop asylum seeker vessels. The campaign utilized stark imagery, depicting perilous sea journeys. Critics argued it was psychological warfare, designed to instill fear. From a statistical standpoint, the boats effectively stopped arriving. However, the human cost in offshore processing centers began to mount. Australia faced criticism from international human rights organizations. Australia's offshore processing policy transferred asylum seekers to Nauru and Manus Island, creating a harsh deterrent. These remote locations house thousands in conditions condemned by human rights groups. The policy aimed to deter arrivals and disrupt people smuggling routes. Asylum seekers faced indefinite detention, extreme conditions, and mental health crises. The dream of safety turned into a nightmare of confinement. Secrecy and restricted access fueled concerns of human rights violations. The psychological toll was immense, creating a damaging environment. Behind the policy debates are human beings fleeing war, persecution, and unimaginable horrors. They come from places like Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, each carrying a story of why they were forced to leave everything behind. These are not abstract numbers. They are parents seeking safety, individuals who have lost loved ones, and people yearning for peace. Their decision to embark on perilous journeys is a desperate gamble. The impact of indefinite offshore detention has been catastrophic. Imagine fleeing terror only to be imprisoned on a remote island, separated from family and stripped of dignity and hope. The scars of their experience run deep, impacting family relationships and integration into new societies. The fight for a secure future continues, a testament to their resilience and a reminder of the human cost of Australia's policies. Australia's offshore processing regime has faced global condemnation and domestic division. International bodies criticize human rights breaches, while domestic debate remains heated. Reports highlight arbitrary detention and severe impacts on detainees' health. The island solution isolates Australia globally. Domestically, asylum policies divide opinion. Governments argue for tough measures, citing national security. Opponents decry policies as inhumane. Legal challenges persist, but policies endure. Australia's identity and humanitarian commitment remain in question. The debate over asylum seekers continues to shape Australia's future. Japan, a nation often perceived as a seamless tapestry of tradition and homogeneity. But beneath this image lies a complex reality of diverse communities. The Ainu, Ryukyuan, and Zainichi Koreans each contribute to Japan's rich mosaic. Yet the perception of homogeneity shapes immigration policies and societal expectations. For immigrants, this means navigating a silent barrier of conformity. Their stories of belonging and identity remain quietly profound. Enter the Technical Intern Training Program, or TITP. On paper, it sounds like a noble endeavor, a bridge of international cooperation designed to transfer Japanese skills and technology to developing nations. But for many who enroll, this official narrative crumbles quickly, revealing a much harsher and often exploitative reality. The TITP has become a lightning rod for criticism, both domestically and internationally. Numerous reports paint a grim picture of a system that functions less as a training initiative and more as a pipeline for cheap, disposable labor. The promise of learning advanced Japanese techniques fades into the reality of repetitive manual tasks, often in dangerous conditions. For these individuals, Japan is not the land of opportunity they envisioned, but a place of fear and exploitation. Japan's new specified skilled worker visa aims to address labor shortages and demographic challenges. It offers foreign nationals pathways in sectors like nursing, construction, and hospitality. But is it a genuine shift or just a temporary fix? Challenges like language barriers and societal acceptance remain. The program's success hinges on a fundamental shift in mindset. Beyond the structured programs for laborers, there exists another, often invisible group of foreigners in Japan, those seeking refuge, and those living in the precarious shadows of non-regular residency. Japan has one of the lowest refugee acceptance rates among developed nations. Thousands apply for asylum, but less than 1% are granted protection. Rejected asylum seekers face harsh realities, often ending up in detention centers criticized for prolonged detentions and inadequate care. These individuals seek safety, but are treated with severity, highlighting the challenges of Japan's immigration policies. In late 2019, the Indian Parliament passed the Citizenship Amendment Act, or CAA, a piece of legislation that ignited a firestorm of controversy across the nation and drew sharp criticism internationally. The law offers a path to Indian citizenship for religious minorities, specifically naming Hindus, Sikhs, Buddhists, Jains, Parsis, and Christians, who have fled persecution from Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Afghanistan and entered India on or before December 31, 2014. On its face, the stated intent, as articulated by the government, was humanitarian, to provide sanctuary to those facing religious oppression in neighboring Muslim-majority countries. However, the exclusion of Muslims from this list of eligible communities immediately raised profound concerns and accusations of religious discrimination. Critics argued that the CAA fundamentally violates the secular principles enshrined in India's constitution, which guarantees equality before the law regardless of faith. Why, they asked, if the goal was to protect persecuted minorities, were groups like Rohingya Muslims from Myanmar or Ahmadiyya Muslims and Shias from Pakistan explicitly left out? This selective application of religious criteria for citizenship was seen by many as a deliberate step towards redefining India's identity along religious lines, a move away from its pluralistic foundations. The passage of the CAA triggered massive, spontaneous protests that swept across India, bringing millions of people from diverse backgrounds onto the streets. University campuses became epicenters of dissent, with students and faculty leading marches and sit-ins. Ordinary citizens, concerned about the implications for India's social fabric and constitutional values, joined in. These demonstrations were some of the largest the country had seen in decades, reflecting a deep societal unease with the direction the government was taking. The imagery was powerful. People holding copies of the Constitution, waving the Indian flag, and chanting slogans in defense of secularism and equality. The government, however, remained steadfast, defending the CAA as a necessary and compassionate measure. They dismissed the criticisms as politically motivated and accused protesters of being misled. But the concerns were not easily brushed aside. Legal scholars questioned the act's constitutionality. Petitions were filed in the Supreme Court, and international bodies voiced their anxieties about the potential for statelessness and discrimination. The CAA wasn't just a law. It became a symbol of a deeper ideological battle over the very soul of India, a nation grappling with its identity in an increasingly polarized world. The anxieties surrounding the Citizenship Amendment Act were further amplified by its close association with another contentious exercise, the National Register of Citizens, or NRC. While the CAA deals with granting citizenship to specific non-Muslim immigrant groups, the NRC is a process aimed at identifying who, among India's existing residents, is a genuine citizen and who is an illegal immigrant. The most prominent and controversial implementation of the NRC so far has been in the northeastern state of Assam, a region with a complex history of migration and ethnic tensions, particularly concerning settlers from neighboring Bangladesh. The stated goal of the Assam NRC, which was updated under the supervision of India's Supreme Court and concluded in 2019, was to detect and deport undocumented immigrants. Residents were required to produce legacy documents, often dating back decades, to prove that they or their ancestors lived in India before a specific cutoff date, March 24, 1971, the eve of the Bangladesh Liberation War. This seemingly straightforward bureaucratic process unleashed a wave of human suffering and chaos. Millions scrambled to find aging, often non-existent papers, navigating a complex and often unforgiving verification system that seemed designed to exclude rather than include. The final NRC list in Assam left nearly 2 million people in a state of terrifying uncertainty, effectively stripped of their citizenship. Many of those excluded were impoverished and poorly educated, lacking the resources or knowledge to navigate the labyrinthine documentary requirements. There were heartbreaking stories of families torn apart, where some members made the list while others didn't, based on minor discrepancies in paperwork. Those declared foreigners faced the prospect of being sent to newly constructed detention centers, their futures bleak, their rights extinguished. The process was criticized for its arbitrary nature and its disproportionate impact on Bengali-speaking communities, particularly Muslims. The experience in Assam fueled widespread fears that the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party, or BJP, intended to implement a similar NRC process nationwide. Senior government figures, including the Home Minister, repeatedly stated this ambition. For many Indian Muslims, already feeling vulnerable, the prospect of a nationwide NRC, coupled with the CAA, felt like a pincer movement designed to question their citizenship and render them stateless in their own homeland. The burden of proof, the demand for documents that many simply do not possess, threatened to create a crisis of unimaginable proportions, challenging the very idea of who belongs in India. Voices of dissent and defiance rose. Students and civil society led the protest movement. Their resistance highlighted India's democratic strength. International voices urged India to reconsider. The debate on citizenship and identity continues globally. The controversies surrounding the CAA and NRC are more than just legal or administrative debates. They represent a fundamental contestation over the idea of India itself. For decades since its independence, India has prided itself on its secular identity, a nation where people of all faiths could, in principle, coexist as equal citizens. The Constitution, with its guarantees of equality and religious freedom, has been the bedrock of this pluralistic vision. These new laws, however, by introducing religious criteria for citizenship and creating mechanisms that could disproportionately disenfranchise certain communities, are seen by many as a direct challenge to this foundational ethos. The long-term implications for social cohesion are immense. When the state begins to differentiate between citizens based on their faith, it risks sowing seeds of division and mistrust that can take generations to overcome. The othering of specific communities, particularly India's large Muslim minority, can lead to increased marginalization, discrimination, and even violence. What does it mean for national unity when a significant portion of the population feels that their belonging is conditional, their rights precarious? These are not abstract concerns. They have real-world consequences for the everyday lives and safety of millions. At the heart of this turmoil is a clash between two competing visions of India. One, a secular, inclusive republic, and the other, a nation that prioritizes the cultural and religious identity of its Hindu majority. Proponents of the latter argue that they are merely correcting historical wrongs and reclaiming a civilizational identity. Critics, however, see this as a dangerous slide towards majoritarianism, where minority rights are eroded and the rich diversity of India is sacrificed at the altar of a monolithic, exclusionary nationalism. This ideological struggle is playing out not just in parliament or the courts, but in villages, towns, and cities across the country. This isn't a phenomenon unique to India. Around the world, we are witnessing a resurgence of nationalist sentiments, often accompanied by stricter immigration policies and a re-evaluation of who belongs. But in a country as vast and diverse as India, with its complex history and its delicate social balance, the stakes are incredibly high. The path India chooses now, regarding citizenship and identity, will not only shape its own future, but will also send a powerful message to a world grappling with similar questions. The soul of a nation, its commitment to its founding principles, is being tested like never before. The journeys we've explored in this series, from the tightening grips on immigration in the UK and the US, to Australia's formidable borders, Japan's nuanced dance with foreign labor, and India's re-evaluation of citizenship, paint a vivid, often unsettling picture of our world today. Each policy, each law, each individual story reflects a larger global narrative of movement, aspiration, and the complex, sometimes heartbreaking realities of seeking a new life or simply a safe haven. These aren't just abstract geopolitical shifts. They are deeply personal experiences, shaping destinies and challenging our very understanding of home and belonging in the 21st century. The lines on the map may seem fixed, but the human stories that traverse them are ever evolving, filled with hope, resilience, and often profound struggle. We've seen how governments, grappling with economic pressures, societal anxieties, and shifting political landscapes, are increasingly redrawing the boundaries of welcome. The reasons cited are varied: national security, cultural preservation, economic stability, but the human impact is a constant, often falling hardest on the vulnerable, the displaced, and those simply dreaming of a better future for themselves and their families. It underscores a fundamental tension in our interconnected world: the universal human desire for safety and opportunity clashing with the sovereign right of nations to control who crosses their borders and who gets to call their land home. This is a conversation that touches every corner of the globe, and its echoes are felt in communities large and small. Here at Travel Divide, we believe that understanding these complex issues begins with listening to the stories of those directly affected, listening to the debates that shape policy, and listening to the diverse perspectives that make up our global community. The world is a mosaic of experiences, and the issue of who gets to move, who gets to stay, and who is forced out is a critical piece of that intricate design. We hope this exploration has been eye-opening, perhaps even challenging, prompting you to think more deeply about the forces that shape migration and the lives caught in its currents. Your engagement with these topics is crucial, as informed citizens are the bedrock of a more understanding and compassionate world. Thank you for watching Travel Divide and for joining us on this journey through some of the most pressing immigration challenges facing nations today. If you found this video insightful and it sparked a thought, a question, or a desire to learn more, please show your support by liking this video, sharing it with others who might find it valuable, and subscribing to our channel for more deep dives into the stories that connect and divide us. And now, we want to turn the conversation over to you. Have you, or someone you know, ever faced immigration hurdles, big or small? What was your experience? Let us know in the comments below. We genuinely want to hear your stories and foster a space for respectful dialogue.